Welcome into another episode of Hockey Royalty Live, the official podcast of hockeyroyalty.com. We are getting started here with the playoffs. That's what I'm talking about. LA Kings back in the playoffs, facing off in the Trilogy against the Edmonton Oilers from up north. We're having a very good show for you. We're going to be talking about the end of the season and then getting into what is going to go down in the third installment of this series. Lots of stuff to talk about. Right now, it's just Russ and I. Joe's trying to figure out all the technical difficulties, so thank you for being patient with us. We're getting started a little bit late. Russ, how are you doing this evening?
Oh, just mentally preparing, man. I think it's everything that we all expected it to be. Certainly seemed like it was pretty inevitable that we're going to get to this point. And so here we are. It's the NHL playoffs. It's nerve-wracking. It's high blood pressure. It's everything, but it's what we love. So I'm excited and I'm nervous all at the same time. But how you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing pretty good. I mean, I think Kings fans' emotions are across the gambit, right? I mean, shout out to Bannerman. He said, it's like, how do you feel confident about a team going into the finals when they blew a lead against the worst team in the NHL, and then the up and down of the season and how you feel, yet, everybody thought the goalies were going to be the worst part of the team, yet they were one of the best parts of the team, and you had this and that. It's like, there's so much good in this team. There's so much bad in this team, and you don't feel confident, but you do feel confident. It's just a weird place to be. Like last season, I thought this team's like, hey, we're going to wipe the floor with Edmonton. Like, we're ready to go. We got Kevin Fiala healthy. It's just now I just don't know what to believe. I feel like I'm in a magician's act. He's just pulling rabbits here, and then he's directing your attention there. And like my emotions are just, just all over the place. And and I truly feel like this team can compete, but my emotions and my heart are just like, let's just expect a four game loss, and let's just drink lots of booze while we watch the descent of this team. So like, just on the spectrums, you quote me every hour, and I give you a different response.
Oh man, that's probably echoing a ton of what other Kings fans are saying. It's really not really, it's really an unknown at this point what to expect going into this playoff series. And it's, yeah, like you said, the regular season, if it gives us any indication what this playoff series will be, we really have no clue, to be honest with you. I mean, we could talk about some of the struggles, and it's probably been a little bit more struggling than actually playing well for this team. But even then, who knows? Maybe you could see this team be the Kings team that we saw at the beginning of the year. And at times, it seems like whenever they want to put the pedal to the metal and play really good hockey, they can. So who knows? Who knows, man? But I'm excited. I'm pumped.
One thing I do know about is our fans are always top notch, and they got here early. Dan P with a let's go Kings, let's beat the Oilers. Cy coming in here. Go Kings, go. Good evening, everybody. Lieb. Hey, guys and gals. Who's ready for part 3? That's this episode titled The Trilogy tonight. Brad coming in third time's the charm. Reindeer head games coming in. Kings to sweep the oil. Gwendolyn. Hey, the ho neighbor. Go Kings, go. So we got a lot of fans coming in here. I appreciate you guys getting there. Like and subscribe. We know we are nothing without our fans, and our team is nothing without our fans. So let's pack out the crypto arena when the time comes. So let's close out the end of the season, and we'll do all of our podcast awards after the playoffs end and everything like that. But what did you think about the last game? Obviously it was a game that should have been closed with a stamp. It was closed with a snipe by Kempe, but it should have been no nerve-wracking, and it ended up being nerve-wracking. Russ, what did you think of the ending of the season?
Man, I mean, it was really just a perfect conclusion to what this regular season has been for the Kings. I mean, it's funny, I'm watching the Kings game, but on my laptop, like most of the game, I'm watching the Ducks and Vegas game because that was really what mattered. Because if Vegas won, then Kings Chicago game meant nothing really. So watching the Vegas game, you see, oh, Ducks are up 3-1. Oh crap, Ducks are actually going to win, and then they did win. And so then at the same time, I think the Kings were up 3-1 against Chicago in the third period. So it was like, okay, well, it certainly seems like it's going to be the Edmonton Oilers because there's no way in hell that the Chicago Blackhawks are going to come back and beat the Kings in regulation because that was the only way that it would have had to happen. The Kings just had to get 1 point to face the Oilers. So, and then I was looking at the stats too, and then the Chicago scores 1 goal, and it was kind of a fluke goal, and I was like, oh, okay, Chicago scores, whatever, it is what it is. Then they score another goal, and I'm like, oh crap, here we go. And then they score another goal, and I'm like, okay, it's 4-3. There's like 3 minutes left. Like, what's going on here? And I was looking at the stats, and the Kings hadn't lost a game in regulation that they were winning after 2 periods. I think they were 34-0-3 coming into this game last night. And of course, the last game of the season, with everything that's gone on this year, the Chicago Blackhawks scored 3 goals in the 3rd period and take the lead against the Kings. So, I mean, it's crazy because I got to a point in a moment where I'm thinking I'm actively rooting for a playoff series against the Edmonton Oilers. Like, that's what I'm sitting here rooting for, because, I mean, by all accounts, it certainly feels like a better matchup, and we'll talk about the matchup later on. But I was like, man, like, where am I at this point? Like, where is the season taking me that I've got to this point? And then as the Kings game, obviously the Kings had to score and come back. And once Kurashev threw that puck over the glass and got that delayed game penalty with like 140 left, I was like, okay, Kings are going to score. This game's going to go to overtime at least. We're going to play the Edmonton Oilers. Sure enough, Victor Arvidsson scores, ties the game, goes to overtime. And like, once overtime was going to come, I wouldn't even care. I packed my stuff. I was ready to go down to the locker room. Let's just get this over with. I really don't care about the rest of the game. And pretty much Adrian Kempe didn't care about the rest of the game either, because it only took him 6 seconds to score in overtime, which is funny because it's like the perfect FU to all Kings fans for this regular season about how that 3rd period kind of concluded. And then just Adrian Kempe just take the puck and take 6 seconds of everyone's time to go down and snipe it, which was like a Kings franchise record, and it tied the NHL record for fastest goal in overtime. So you have all that going on, but at the back of my mind, I just immediately thought okay, Oilers, that's what's going to happen. But the way we got to that point with the game against Chicago, it was the perfect ending to what a shit show of a regular season it was.
As all our fans just saw, if you're watching live, Joe just tapped in here. And just like Taylor Swift's album dropped today, Joe comes in with a fury, got his fans all a Twitter in the chat. Joe, how you doing?
I'm all right. Fortunate for everybody, I think that this laptop hasn't been smashed into about 400 pieces, but we are here.
The laptop he's working on is engraved in stone. It is from the caveman era and is barely holding on. The fan is just little people, munchkins, from Willy Wonka in there, fanning the hard drive. So, Joe, how was your feeling at the end of the season coming in? Obviously, you watch the game, and it should be a curb stomping of Chicago, and we made it interesting. Russ and I were talking about how it's just the epitome of this season.
Mm-hmm.
How did you feel watching that experience?
It was weird because it was funny. I tweeted out early in the game. I think it's I didn't really care because Edmonton, Dallas, I think the matchup sucks either way. So I just was hoping for Dallas just for an earlier start time for the away games.
I can tell you all the Dallas fans were hoping for us. I'll tell you that.
I believe it. So it was weird. It was a weird feeling in that game because it's there was still something to play for in terms of seeding, but from a matchup standpoint, it wasn't. I didn't care either way. I wasn't rooting one way or the other. I don't know if I caught it, and if you guys had a preference, Dallas or Edmonton, but I didn't care. So my interest level or how the game went, it was whatever for me. I wasn't all that invested, but it was. I think it's a good way to put it. There's a kind of a microcosm of the season, the way the game went, where it just Chicago ends up coming back after the Kings seemingly in control, right, with the 3-1 lead, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, they're down 4-3, and they've got to tie it late in order to even get the point. So it was kind of a shit show of a game, but as was the season, really.
Yeah, I think this whole thing comes down to, we've got the points. It is what it is. Either way, we're playing Dallas, who we've won one game in the last 4 years against, or we play Oilers who have taken it to us the last 2 playoffs. Either way, it's a David versus Goliath matchup. Do we have the slingshot that can take the Giant down? And we're going to break that down here very shortly. I think this team is such an enigma, and it's just, I've used that word once before with Kevin Fiala, and I think it holds true here with this team. I just don't know what to think. I just don't know what to think. And we were talking, Joe, before you came on. Like, I had so much more confidence last season coming into the playoffs. Like, I was just like, okay, we're getting healthy. This team's ready to go. We got Corpusalo and all this kind of stuff like that. Gavrikov pairing, much to our dismay, has been working out. Like, hey, we're not going to question it. It is what it is. This team, I mean, we could sweep the Oilers. We get swept by the Oilers. Like, I have no idea what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't. Because if we play like we did in the first part of the season, Oilers can't touch us. Right? And they just can't. And they probably will get one game because, McJesus is McJesus. But this team could dominate anybody. I mean, the sore spot of the team has been the goal, or the sore spot coming into the season was the goaltending. One of the top 5 goaltending tandems in the league. Like, and we're like, okay, then maybe the PK was so bad last season, we need to rectify that. Number 1, 2 PK almost all the season, right? Like, oh well, the PK or the penalty or the power play needs to get better as the season goes along. We've been, garbage. Power play has been getting better. Hey, we need a top season from Quentin Byfield. Quentin Byfield did that. Hey, we need the older players, Drew Doughty and Kopitar, to keep up what they're doing. Kopitar was almost right there, and I haven't looked at it, is right there for the season leading in points. And Drew Doughty is, I think, his 10th season of over 2,000 minutes, which is like
season, yeah.
9th season, yeah. So, like, all those things, if you were to say that in a vacuum, you would say the Kings were winning the President's Trophy, and here nobody has confidence that we can win a series. And it's just a weird thing to think about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of the problems now, I mean, because, yeah, you said it best. Like, if you had asked somebody that if Quentin Byfield had a breakout year, goaltending is what it is, penalty kill has been top 2, 1 best maybe across the league throughout the entire year. Yeah, you would think that this team would be one of the better teams in the Pacific Division, but they've just limped into the playoffs in the second half of the year. They just can't score. And, I mean, they're giving up high danger chances left and right. And, yeah, that's why it's like it seemed like it was like a perfect culmination to the end of the year with that game against Chicago last year. But this team is so predictable yet so unpredictable at the same time. Like, these last few games, the game against Anaheim where they lost in Anaheim, like, I wasn't surprised that they lost that game. It was a game that there was a lot of high energy in that building. The Ducks wanted to play their best and not get whooped by a team that had beat them, I think, 7 times in a row. So they came out and did that. They played their game, and the Kings just really didn't care. They were on the brink of a playoff spot, clinching a playoff spot. So it was like, what's the point of us being in this game? So they had to rectify that by going up against Calgary and beating them at home, and they did that and clinched the playoff spot. So the next game against Minnesota, they lay a complete egg. And I wasn't surprised by that either. So what do they do this next game? They come out and just win. So it's just, I mean, it took them a little while, or it took them a little bit more work than they probably wanted to. But now it's like we come into the playoffs. It's like, what are we gonna see? Is this a team that just feels like they can just flip a switch and just all of a sudden be that Kings team that they were at the beginning of the year and compete with a team like the Edmonton Oilers? I sure hope so. But that's where the unpredictability comes in, because I have no idea. So it should be fun either way.
I don't know how unpredictable it is. I mean, it's been this way pretty much since Jim Heller took over. He has stripped the offense away, and he's trying to win these games. And again, I don't know if this is him doing this. I've said this before, so I'm repeating myself, but I don't know if he's doing this because he wants to do this, or he's like, you know what, this is the freaking roster we got. They were dealing with a lot of unlucky. At times there was some turnover stuff and odd man rush stuff and maybe uncharacteristic stuff. So I think he came in and was like, I'm tightening the clamps. I'm getting the structure back. For better or for worse, this is how we're doing it. So this team can't score. It's not going to score. But they haven't scored, and I don't care what they did. I mean, if you look, their numbers across the board are worse under Jim Hiller, heavily skewed. The fact that they're even middle of the pack in some of these things is because of go look at the possession numbers and the expected goal numbers against Chicago and Anaheim and San Jose. I mean, these are AHL teams that they've just throttled over these last, in possession wise anyways, over this last couple of weeks. So those are heavily skewing the fact. It would be way worse without those. This team under Hiller is going to try to beat an Oilers team 2-1, 4 times out of 7. So I actually don't think it's all that surprising. This is what we've seen pretty much since he came in. You know, this is what it is. This is what they're going to try to do. There's not all of a sudden going to be an uptick in offense. You know, they've been middling in terms of their expected goals. They've been middling in terms of their high danger chances, and it's actually they're just middle. They're an average hockey team right now, and they're going to try to win games again with their structure. That's their bread and butter right now. That's everything. That they're putting all the eggs in that basket. So that's why you play a team like Chicago, so you score 5, whatever. But they need to score 5 in the playoffs too. And that's going to be the question of how they do that.
The way you can score right now is with Hockey Royalty's new shirts. Let Kev Be Kev shirt is now $30. Size is small through XXL, or you can get a combo. Trevor Moore, obviously over 30 goals there, Joe. Tip of the cap to you. And the Kev combo shirt is $45. DM all orders to NHL Russell. He'll get your order ready to go. Venmo at Hockey Royalty for all your t-shirt needs. So I think let's get it started with just the overview here. Overview of the series, Trilogy. I would say let's start with the fan aspect and the emotional aspect of this. Obviously, I want revenge. I think we could have won both series if things would have fell our way, maybe a little luck here. I disagree with Joe. I feel like there's a couple games where we could, in this series, put up some points. Obviously, the overlying data across a mass spectrum would suggest what Joe said, but I think this team can boat race a team. Kempe can snipe, Fiala can snipe, people could take over some games, and we can get that, and the goaltending has been a surprise there. Emotionally, I'm not ready for it. Emotionally, I'm not.
Who is?
And it's just like going back to an ex-girlfriend who cheated on you. You're like, man, I know what's going to happen. I know I'm going to walk into this room. Things are going to seem crystal. Could you imagine winning game 1? Like, what if we win game 1 4-1?
Again, it'd be the third time. It'd be the third straight year.
All the emotions right here again. You're like, okay, we can change our aspect, and then we're just gonna get curb stomped, American History X style, right into the curb. And I don't know if I have a heart for this. I'm 37 years old. I drink a lot of beer. I eat a lot of burgers. I might have a cardiac arrest this series, and I just don't understand how fans out there are ready for this. I know there's a chance we can win. Sure. And by the way, I got on a Twitter series. NHL has the highest ratio of lower seeds beating upper seeds in the playoffs. 8 seed versus 1 seed, 19%. So it's out there. I don't think it's ever happened in the NBA. And put in the chat if I'm wrong. But so there's a chance there. There's a chance that the team can spike up. We talked about how well they play. But man, just from an emotional standpoint, I am not ready. Are you ready, Russell?
No, yeah, that's exactly the point. I mean, once again, you're echoing a lot of what Kings fans are thinking. Side note, I will say there was an 8 seed NBA team that did beat a 1 seed team. It was the Golden State Warriors with Baron Davis and I believe Steven Jackson. They beat the Dallas Mavericks. I remember watching those games because I was a big Baron Davis fan. But anyway, yeah, that's why it was like, I'm like with Joe when he was saying like he didn't really care, like Dallas or Edmonton. I mean, part of me was thinking like while I'm watching the game last night and they were trying to come back or whatever, we were rooting for the Kings to come back. To win. And that's why I was like, why am I doing this? It's because like, yeah, like you want to face the Oilers because they give you some reason to think that this is a better matchup for them. There's familiarity. There's the games that they've played against the Oilers this year. They've been competitive. They haven't really been too lopsided. So, and then you look at the other side of the spectrum where the game against the Stars, it was just one-sided. The Stars just dominated every game. And even the game, like you can say like the road games where they were at the end of a long road trip, there was a game at home that the Kings were rested and the Stars came in on a back-to-back, just totally obliterated them. So
we've been outscored, I think, 15-3.
It was not pretty. So it's like you have this decision where it's like you have this like thought. It's like, okay, do you go up against the Oilers and go through this emotional roller coaster like Randon put, where you just don't know if you can get through it or if you're ready for it, or do you face the Dallas Stars where, hey, expectations are probably all-time low. If they win, cool, but if they lose, it's probably just going to be like ripping off a Band-Aid, just get it over with, and we'll see what happens. But now, like, yeah, it's just we've got to the point where we're facing the Oilers, and it's tough because, yeah, we obviously we all want the Kings to win. Like, we don't want them to lose again because it would be so hard to deal with.
It's getting old.
So, but I try to have it like in the back of my mind, like if things don't go well, or if they end up losing again to the Oilers, you would have to expect changes are going to be made. So maybe you kind of have that in the back of your mind that say, okay, this is the third straight year. If this doesn't work this time, something's got to be done. Something has to change.
I've even seen fans rooting for a sweep from Edmonton for a change. They're like, hey, exactly. I'm over Rob Blake. Let's just. I hope there's a massacre, just so that we can get some new blood in here. Like, that's crazy to believe.
I know, but I mean, I don't really blame them because that's like, if you watch the regular season, if you watch this team this year, they haven't really given you any hope to believe that they can win. So, I mean, yeah, Joe just pointed out all the numbers and the way they played under Hiller. They've been a really defense-first style team. They haven't been exciting to watch whatsoever. So, but now you get to the playoffs, and I know it's cliche, and a lot of players are starting to echo it, but it's a brand new season.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to say I'm confident, but I'm definitely more confident going up against the Edmonton Oilers than I would be going up against the Dallas Stars. So I don't know if there's going to be 7-6, 6-5 games in this. I would think the Kings would probably try to win, like Joe said, try to win games 2-1, 3-2. So you're probably going to have to rely on a lot of your goaltending and a lot of the defense style structure that you play against two of the top 4 players in the world. So good luck with that.
Yeah,
I mean, we're talking about emotions here in the Terminator statistician over there in your top right has no emotions. He's just a robot, and he's just crunching the numbers left to right. And the numbers that you can crunch for your betting here is at DraftKings Sportsbook. Code THPN to get your code and your betting on. The chase for the Stanley Cup is on. And if you're looking into the light or looking to light the lamp, nothing beats DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NHL. From start to finish, we're all starting our playoff beards and our betting ways here, hoisting the cup. The DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered the same way in same game parlays, live betting, odds, and so much more. If you crack open this sportsbook, the odds are juicy. Carolina, Boston, Panthers, all favored. And we are the underdogs here, the LA Kings, plus 160 at DraftKings Sportsbook right now. If you want to parlay those odds and see you can bet the first round, the cup could be yours. So, download DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code THPN. New customers can bet $5, get 200 bonus bets instantly. That's code THPN only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Russ. Sorry, interrupt. Give us our bets there. Sorry, I was trying to be like a ring announcer, getting the string it along there. But what do you? Let's give our opinions here. I know we're not supposed to give betting advice, so don't take our advice because we're not official bettors, nor should you. Is there an upset that you like in the first round?
I'll
tell you the underdogs. You got Islanders, Maple Leafs, Lightning, Capitals, Jets, Predators, Golden Knights, Kings.
Yeah, I like Vegas over Dallas. It's not really that much of an upset, but I mean, if I had to pick any of those teams, I'd probably pick Vegas because they've had their number against Dallas this year. They've swept them, and it's 2 of the games went to overtime, so take it for what it's worth. But yeah, if I had to pick any upset, just real quick, I saw some people are talking about in the chat. The Kings are gonna be wearing their '90s heritage style jerseys on the road. for during the playoffs. I don't know if they said just the first round or the entire playoffs, but that's an interesting change. I think they're leaving the Chrome Domes at home, but
Thank God.
who knows? You're not a fan of the Chrome Domes, Joe?
No.
No?
I got
They're
maybe
growing on me. They're
is that
growing
the
on
old
me.
man in me, but no, I'm not.
Growing on you. It's been like 17 seasons.
It took a while.
Slow burn.
It did take a while. It did take a while.
Brandon, two things related to your question about underdogs and THPN and the promo code THPN for DraftKings. So you'd said something earlier, and Russ alluded to it too, about how, everybody has a shot, and technically that is true. And it's always worth remembering, like, underdogs are just not more likely to win. That doesn't mean they cannot win. Like, for example, the biggest underdog in the playoffs at DraftKings are the Washington Capitals at plus 340 to beat the Rangers. Plus 340 is still an implied probability of 22%. So they have a 22% chance of knocking off the Rangers. That's not zero, right? So that's always worth remembering. Like the Kings are underdogs at plus 160, which I think is like 38% or something along those lines, mid to high 30s%. So it's not as if the Kings have zero chance to win. It's just they're not likely. Second, Randon, I actually did place two bets, so fade these. That I bet on. It's really a coin flip, Toronto and Boston. Toronto's plus 105, so I guess technically they're the underdog, but I did bet Toronto to beat Boston, and I bet Nashville to beat Vancouver at plus 130 at DraftKings. So
just a reminder, we are not betting experts.
Nope.
Do not use us for betting advice. We're just giving our comments here.
Yeah, if you follow Joe, definitely don't follow
use. Well, I mean, Calgary's not in here for you to obviously fail, but
I'll find a way.
I'll find a way. When there is a will, there
Elias
is a way.
Lindholm, better anytime goal scorer.
So when there's a will, there's a way in the trilogy, and that's what we're getting into here coming up on this podcast right now. So let's get into let's break down the X and O's. We did the emotional feeling. Joe doesn't have any emotion. He's the statistical robot, but he can give us a breakdown here. Where do you think the Kings can, not really an X factor player, but where do you think the advantage lies within our roster?
It has to be, they have to score. They can't miss off the rush. Okay. So that is where Edmonton's defense group is probably their weakest is when they're being attacked on the rush. And that is the Kings' strong suit. They can be a team that can score off the rush. Now, so the picture to paint if you're a Kings fan is don't do it, Cy. The picture, the optimistic picture to paint if you're a Kings fan is the 1-3-1 is stingy. It limits Edmonton's ability to get into the zone clean. If they're able to get pucks out into the neutral zone enough, and then you've got your speedy wingers, your Byfields, your Moores, your Fialas, your Kempes, and they have to make plays off the rush, and they have to score off the rush. That's how they're going to do it, because let's face it, the Kings are not going to spend a lot of time cycle-wise in the offensive zone. They haven't the past 2 years against Edmonton. Edmonton is going to spend the bulk of time in the LA zone. LA needs to do what they do with their structure. They need to limit the high danger chances against and the passes to the slot, which is obviously really difficult against probably the best offensive team in the league. So that's a problem. But if they can find a way to do that, there's the margin for error is just small. But off the rush is where, like, looking at stick taps to all three zones, tracking data, like if you're looking at a potential weak spot for Edmonton, I don't think their defense is nearly as bad as some Kings fans think they are. But on the rush is where they can be had a little bit, because the speed of wingers like Kempe and guys I just mentioned going down against some of the defensemen like Cody Ceci, Desharnais, etc. Like, that's where you can maybe catch them. It's just, again, the margin for error is small, because I don't see the Kings of controlling a cycle, long extended offensive zone shifts against Edmonton. I'm sure it'll happen. Obviously, over the course of a series, you're going to have periods of time where you're playing okay, but on the whole, I don't think that's how they're going to be successful.
So, Joe, I mean, you're talking about the team and how they looked in the beginning of the season, right? We talked about it a little bit, the counterpunch mentality of what the LA Kings are, right? Sit in the 1-3-1, wait for the other team to make a mistake, and then counterpunch off the rush. And I agree with you. I mean, we have to get back to playing solid 1-3-1, which being a pest up top, not sitting back, being aggressive, and then having that outlet pass. Russ, is this team capable of that? I mean, we haven't seen it much lately. Is this team capable of that against some of the best forwards in the league?
I think they are. The thing is with that, though, is that Edmonton's familiar with the 1-3-1 probably more than any other team. So that's the only thing that kind of is a little bit concerning. Because, I mean, we heard obviously from Nikita Zadorov when they played the Canucks how much that frustrated them. They frustrated a lot of opponents playing the 1-3-1, but it seems with the Edmonton Oilers, they're totally fine with attacking the 1-3-1 the way you should, which is dump pucks in, chase after them, and converge on the defender who's trying to get the puck out and with a clean breakout. So it's a different coach, though, so that'll be interesting to see how they do attack it. But I'm sure he'll probably look back at a lot of the tape from the last 2 years to see what success they did have against this 1-3-1 system and see what they can do. But what's interesting, I went back and listened to Drew Doughty's exit interview from last year. And you guys everyone should go listen to it, because it's so, like, if you had listened, if he had, it sounded like he recorded it yesterday. He's like, yeah, he talks about, like, there's no other team I'd rather face again in the playoffs than the Edmonton Oilers. He said he wants to play them again. He says he can't wait to play them again. So it's just funny how it all lined up. But there's one thing that he said. He said that they made some adjustments in the last one where he thought that they were a better team than the Edmonton Oilers. And I'm just curious what kind of adjustments those made. Obviously, you have a new head coach on the other side too, with Jim Hiller as opposed to Todd McClellan, who is definitely not afraid to making adjustments. Whether those adjustments go further than just line changes or player personnel as opposed to structure, we'll see. But that'll be interesting to see how that shakes out with when you have two different total minds now, as opposed to Woodcroft and McClellan. Now you have, was it Knobloch is his last name? Mm-hmm. And then you have Hiller now with the Kings that are taking the helm. So it'll be curious, this back and forth. I mean, it's going to be a totally different, I feel like, game flow that's going to happen. I mean, there were times where, like, what was it, 2 years ago, that there were games where the Oilers just kind of won like 6-1, 6-2, whatever. They kind of just blew the doors off. But it felt like a lot of the games last year were really close.
Yep.
So, and it's just that Zach Hyman goal. It's funny. You think about it too. Like, all the goals that he scored this year, kind of just in tight and in close. And of course, the clinching goal he scored last year, or either Yamamoto or him, either way.
Yamamoto, yeah.
A wrister from the circle. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if the Kings system is what's going to benefit them, but I think the adjustments that Hiller is willing to make is what's probably going to benefit them a little bit more.
I got to throw this up here, and this is an apology on my end. Gwendolyn, you threw up $30, and I forgot to post it up. We got.
Oh, thank you.
We got sidetracked. You put it right in the beginning. That's our fault. We owe you a T-shirt. So get Russell up. We'll give you a free T-shirt, whether the Moore T-shirt or the Fiala one. That's my bad for not throwing up your super chat right away. We do love our fans, and that was my mistake. So thank you for the $30. Really appreciate that. She says, I wanted more goals in the first period. I think she was talking about the Chicago game when we were talking. But now coming to this series, how is Skinner playing right now, and what are we in for in this coming series?
It's funny. I was working on a piece for just getting the Hockey Royalty staff predictions for the series, and I'm doing my part of it right now. And I was looking at Skinner specifically because I know he struggled early, but I knew he bounced back. Since January 1st, according to Evolving Hockey, he's 5th in the NHL in goal save above expected. Goaltending is not an issue in Edmonton. You guys know I've always been a little bit higher on Skinner than most, I think. He had a really bad start, but I think he's pretty much, for the most part, steadied the ship. And you got to remember, the Kings are a team, and this is the Kings are a team that, they're true talent. They're probably like a an 8% shooting team. And they're not going to have sustained pressure. They're not going to be getting a ton of offensive zone chances. They're not going to be out chancing Edmonton. So that means they're getting even fewer chances. So they need to score on what they do get. That's going to be the kicker in this series. If the Kings just can't really afford to miss on their chances, and if Skinner is going to be playing the way he's played really the second half of the season, then that's going to make things a little bit tougher.
Yeah, so there's one thing that I saw. And actually, I saw it in practice the other day, and then I saw a little bit of it last game. And it's funny because, like Gwen says, she wanted more goals in the first period, and a lot of those chances they were getting, it just seemed like they were just Quentin Byfield just parking himself in front of the net, putting a stick on the ice, and hoping a puck comes to him. And sure enough, that's how he actually scored a goal. But I saw the Kings work on in practice there, just getting pucks to the point, but just throwing everybody that they had in front of the goaltender. And I'd have to go back and watch some of the games against Edmonton, but I don't want to sit here and say that I don't recall that ever happening. But I mean, it seems like that it rarely happened where they were willing to go to the front of the net during points of the regular season this year. So yeah, I'm with you. I think a lot of people kind of criticize Skinner a little too much. I, for one, was that same way last year. But this year and during the playoffs last year, I thought he was pretty good.
Yeah.
So he was definitely not a reason that game was probably the series was closer than what it was. So it's not like, I mean, I would maybe even give the edge to them in terms of goaltending because we just don't know what Cam Talbot's going to be and how he's played. And even just the game against Chicago last night doesn't give me any confidence. So yeah, I'm curious to see how that happens with goaltending. But I think if they're the Kings and how they've been working their strategy or their offensive game lately, like Joe talked about, I think the pod the other day when we were talking about high danger chances and how they've really been low with Hiller. If that's going to be the case and you're going to get a lot of shots from the outside, then you better be getting bodies in front of the goaltending and trying to pick up those dirty goals that we normally see happen in the playoffs. Because if that doesn't happen and you're just throwing pucks to the net, Skinner's going to make every save. And make every joke you want about the Edmonton Oilers and Darnell Nurse and some of their defensemen, there's a lot of good defensemen on that team that are probably more underrated than people give them credit for. Mm-hmm. So you better be getting those greasy goals whenever you get the opportunity to do.
And they have for their lack of skating, they have size. And so if it's about putting pucks in the crease and in that area, like they have enough to clear it out. And Gwendolyn, you say it's okay, dude. It's not okay. Shirt on me. DM Russ, you got a shirt on me. All right.
And I just want to touch on that. And I don't want to go too crazy about it because it was probably just like a concept drill that they're working on in practice, not necessarily like this is the way we're going to do it, but not something that should give anybody confidence. By the way, just throwing pucks from the point that ain't beating anybody, especially Edmonton. And the Kings are among the fewest in the league at. They're great at both. So they're great at defending high danger chances, but they're non-existent virtually with actually off high danger chances in the offensive zone. That's, again, according to all three zones, the tracking data that he does. So, I mean, it's not sustainable. It's not a way you win hockey games these days by not being able to actually get pucks in the danger area. That said, the Kings can be a team. Another way to win that is doable is scoring off the rush. And that's what the Kings can do. And again, I go back to what I said earlier, like that's how you're going to catch them. You have to be able to get them off the rush. And the Kings, for better or for worse, it could be a situation where they may be hemmed in their own zone for a bit. They don't give up any goals, though. And maybe Edmonton's pushing, and you catch them on an odd man break. And maybe you get something off the rush. Like that is a possibility.
Let's get into a little bit of some X factors, and I want to go at this two ways. Let's start with the team X factors and how the team needs to play against Edmonton, and then we'll go maybe to some individual X factors and what we need to see from those players. I think all three of us might have one player in mind that needs to be an X factor, but we'll get to that. For the team, Russ, where do you think the X factor needs to be for the LA Kings to win the series as a team?
Oh, as a team, probably bottom six, right? I mean, I was looking at some of the Oilers lineups, and maybe it's kind of not even necessarily recency bias because it was last year, but just kind of going back to the playoff series last year, like Kyler Yamamoto and Clem Costin just destroyed the Kings. Nick Bukestad, those players just had their way with whoever they were up against in the Kings' bottom six. So, I mean, looking at the lines,
Do you think the Edmonton Oilers are better this year in the bottom six? I mean, they made trades to improve their bottom six.
True.
Or do you think they're worse?
I'm not necessarily as high on maybe the addition of Henrique and Carrick as probably others are, or maybe even Oilers fans probably are. But I think I'll say this: I think the Kings' bottom six is better this year than it was last year, and I think it's better than the Oilers' bottom six. I'll say that because if you're able to put Kevin Fiala on the third line and whatever you can get out of PL Dubois, we'll see what that brings. But if you're able to get those players that the Kings have in the bottom six, with that have experience against this team too. So you have those players that you have Blake Lizotte, you have your Carl Grunstrom, who's probably going to play. So you have players that are experienced against this Oilers team in the playoffs. So if you can get any sort of production, or even not even necessarily production, but if you can gain some momentum with those players on the ice. I mean, I was looking at the lineups for the Oilers, and I mean, their third line is like Dylan Holloway, Ryan McLeod, and Evander Kane. So I don't want to say it's a bad line, but I think the Kings can match up against that trio pretty well. So I would say that the depth is what's going to have to carry the Kings.
Joe, what is your X factor in this series?
I feel like this is an obvious statement, but you have to play them 5-on-5. Your only shot is playing them 5-on-5. And I know, the Kings on the season have the second best penalty kill in the league, but over the last 20, 25 games, it's outside the top 10. So I don't care where LA is in the penalty kill rankings. I don't want Edmonton on the power play in the playoffs. So they have to find a way to play as disciplined a game as they can, because if you're going to go to the box, you're not going to beat this team. At least LA is not going to beat this team because LA doesn't score 5-on-5. So if you're not going to do that, then you can't give them the opportunity to also score on the power play. So they really have to limit the special teams. They've got to play as much of the series at 5-on-5 as they can. And they have to take advantage of the opportunities that they get. But I would say special teams.
And we saw in that last game in Edmonton, we talked about it, I think, on a pod that we did, that the Kings' strategy on the penalty kill is just to allow whoever has got the puck down low to play the goalie one-on-one. And the Oilers planted McDavid down low. And if you're going to give any player in the NHL time and space to make something happen, I wouldn't do it to Connor McDavid. And sure enough, that's what he did. And he found Evan Bouchard, and Bouchard just did what he did last year. And it was like, oh man, that was pretty much like a repeat of what we saw last year, is just Evan Bouchard just getting open ice at the top of the circle, kind of creeping in, just blasting one past whoever the Kings goaltender was. Yeah. So that's going to be something that we're going to have to watch to see how the Kings match up, because that's been their penalty kill strategy the entire year, is give their opponent that time and space down low, but just let that goaltender play one-on-one with the skater with the puck. But if that's Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl, man, I don't like those chances.
The data would say otherwise. In the power play since the All-Star break, Kings are 11th and Edmonton Oilers are 16th. So,
but remember, that's relative. So what's more likely, the 11th place Kings power play scoring against, and I don't know what Edmonton's penalty kill is, or the 16th ranked Edmonton power play scoring against the 11th place Kings penalty kill? Edmonton's going.
I'm not saying Edmonton's not good. I'm just saying,
yeah,
they're not as electric as they were last year.
That's
last
fair.
year. Last year they were scoring almost 50% of the time in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So my to be honest, my is parodied with that is I think the power play is the key to this series. Last year we saw a lot of the times where Edmonton's going to take nasty penalties. You're going to get the checks to the knees. You're going to get the penalties off the road. You're going to get the frustration stuff from Evander Kane. Can we capitalize on this so we don't have to score 5-on-5? Because 5-on-5 has been inconsistent. So can we get those plays? If you're looking at since the All-Star break, some of the rankings here, like I said, they are I just have this pulled up here. The 11th best power play. Their points percentage per power play is 61%. So I mean, 2/3 of the power play essentially you're getting points on. That definitely wasn't last playoffs, right? I almost rather decline the power play last playoffs because we were scoring way better on 5-on-5. So I
Power play
think the
last
power
year, I think, was really good in the playoffs.
It was the year before. The year before.
Oh, the year before.
the year
Okay.
before. I mean, last year was
No,
non-existent.
last year was good. The year before was not as good.
That's right.
So
Yeah. Sorry.
I just think we need to score on the power play. I think we need to take advantage of those nasty plays that Edmonton's going to give. Like there's going to be cross checks. There's going to be bad plays here. There's going to be going in the crease and messing with Cam Talbot. There's going to be all those kind of things. Corey Perry's on that team, right? So like
God.
you have the nastiness brothers of Evander Kane, Corey Perry, Draisaitl. Like there's going to be penalties.
Yeah,
You got to take advantage of it. And I think that's the number one thing for me is that I know that the teams 5-on-5, we're going to play good, we're going to play bad. But eventually we're going to get a play here where we have to capitalize. And if we're going to win that 2-1 game, Joe, if we're going to win that 3-2 game, Russ, one of those goals or two of those goals got to be on the power play sometimes to sneak some W's. And I think that is huge for this team.
Yep. Really, that's kind of the underlying theme, I think, Randon, is the Kings have to take advantage of whatever scoring opportunities they get, whether that's a power play, whether it's an odd man rush, whether that's a breakaway, whatever it is. Like they need to squeeze out every goal that they can possibly squeeze out in this series because, and I know there's a lot of people that buy into defense wins championships and that the strategy can work and shut down the Oilers and winning 2-1 is how you do it. But you guys know I don't subscribe to that. And I think in order to win in the NHL right now, you have to be able to score. And so the Kings haven't shown the ability to score under Jim Hiller. So they need to capitalize on whatever chances that they get. So, yeah, I agree. I think that's the power plays certainly falls into that.
So now flipping it from the team's dynamic to a player dynamic. And I know, and I'm just going to throw the white elephant in the room. Everybody's looking at PLD as the player that needs to produce. So I think let's talk about him by himself, and then we'll give three other players that we really like because everybody's talking about PLD. I saw quotes on or questions being asked on X about how many points would be good for PLD, this or that. I just want him to be a factor in this. I want him to be a dominant factor.
An X.
I want him to be an X factor, So points, obviously points are nice, right? I mean, so what, a point per game, 0.8 points per game, whatever, it doesn't really matter to me. I want him to be noticeable. I want him to have some hits. I want him to put his glove over Draisaitl's mouth and get in his face. I want some edgy stuff from him. I don't care if he takes a penalty. I want him to be a nasty player. I want him, because we've seen 2 or 3 games here, 2 or 3 games there where he's in the muck. He's there. He's using his size. He's doing that dirty stuff. I mean, you got Corey Perry, Evander Kane, all yada, yada, yada. Like, we need those types of players. And England, for all the fighting things worth, there's no fighting in playoffs because people are too worried about taking penalties, taking minutes off the ice. Very little fighting. But you need that edgy play on the ice in a legal way, and I think PLD needs to have that type of game, that type of series, that type of drive in order for us to have a chance at this series. Russ, just nod in your head. Agreeing with me.
Yeah.
Do you think he's got it in him? Do you think, all it's been is, hey, I came here to win a Stanley Cup. But yet he hasn't proven it in a consistent basis in the regular season. This is his time.
You know what's weird is that, just going back to the lines that Hiller used last game, I don't know if those are the lines that he'll use for the playoffs, but I actually really liked them. And obviously we know that Hiller's not afraid to make changes in game, let alone probably in the first period. If you are able to start, or if you do start Laferriere with Kopitar and Kempe, and you have Byfield with Dubois, and maybe even Kevin Fiala, because those 3 looked great. It's the Chicago Blackhawks, so take it for what it's worth. But Byfield wasn't afraid to kind of get in McDavid's face at times this year and kind of muck it up a little bit. And yeah, PLD is showing the capabilities the edginess to his game too at times. I know he hasn't really showed it much this year, but I mean, look at some of the playoff series last year. I think he played pretty well and was really physical against the Vegas Golden Knights when he was on the Winnipeg Jets last year. So yeah, if you're PLD and you're playing with Byfield, who's not afraid to kind of get in those dirty areas and play that little sandpaper game, and you're going up against the other teams or the Oilers' third line, which could consist of players, like you said, like Evander Kane, Corey Perry, obviously players that aren't afraid to play that type of way. Yeah, I mean, if he's not producing as far as P.L. Dubois, then yeah, play that high-intensity game where you're finishing your checks. You're going to the front of the net. And he's done that at times, but I think he can be a little bit more physical too. So I'm hoping to see a little bit more physicality out of him this year than what we've seen, or this playoffs than what we've seen this entire year. And I think we can. I think he just has to unlock that playoff type of style in his game. I'm curious.
He's got to play with Kevin Fiala. Like Hiller's got to stop screwing around with this and it's Dubois got to play with Fiala. And then I agree, Russ. I love the Byfield on the side of it too, on their line too. So I understand where Byfield, he kind of moves around a little bit, but Dubois is, if not,
but aren't you then taken away from Kopi? Because you guys are Laugh fans. I'm not. I think he's garbage, to be honest.
Well, I guess that's
rookie.
fine.
He's a rookie.
But we're in the playoffs. Being a rookie or not, we're trying to win games. And if you look at his player card is horrible. So,
so was Quentin Byfield's his first year too,
but again, first year or not doesn't matter. Like if he's playing the first line, he needs to produce. So if we're making that switch,
that's fine.
I didn't mean to
no, you're good.
You're good.
There, I mean, you're totally right. Yeah, I mean that's a big position to play in for a first year pro too, going up against the Oilers in the top line.
My whole thing is Fiala's got to be there. If Byfield's there, great. If it's Laferriere there, again, I kind of like the Laferriere and Dubois thing that they've had going on, so I'm okay with that.
So Joe, let me ask you a question then, because this is what you're getting at here. In the beginning of the season, the Fiala Dubois thing didn't work out. Mm-hmm. What makes you so confident now that it should work out?
Well, I mean, I just think they went away from it quickly. I mean, there's 10 games or so. And I just think they needed more time to kind of gel, because I think what was happening was you have both, for a team that we've talked about that has struggles to create high danger chances in the offensive zone. Those are arguably the best two players they have at passing into the high danger area. And so I think what they were getting into was, it felt like Dubois was making a pass to Fiala, and I don't think they really read off each other very good in the early part of the season. I just think they needed more time to kind of figure out each other's tendencies a little bit. And I think when I'm looking at Dubois, who's a guy who, again, his strengths, when he's at his best, he's controlling the puck into the offensive zone through the middle. He's able to make plays into the slot area. You got to have somebody on that line that can finish, and Kevin Fiala can finish. And same thing, vice versa. Like Kevin Fiala is obviously an extremely creative player in his own right. And if he's doing his thing when he has the puck in the offensive zone, Dubois is a player that can, go to the front of the net, so to speak, right? Be a force in the slot area. And the other thing to this, maybe the case to have Laferriere on that top line is, somebody's going to have to play against McDavid. I don't know how they're going to match this up. Kopitar is going to get a lot of Connor McDavid. So, it could be a way to free up the Byfield and Fiala if they're playing with Dubois, because they're not going to be out there, chances are, against McDavid. Maybe that frees up a mismatch for the Kings on the third line. That could be an opportunity for Hiller if that's something he's considering. So I just think you've got two players that are good at getting his passes to the slot in Dubois and Fiala. And if you put them together, that may give you your best opportunity at some scoring at 5-on-5 in this series, depending on the matchups.
But I think the matchups, though.
Real quick, Brandon, I want to say, because that top, with Joe said, we're going to see probably Kopitar matchup against McDavid or Draisaitl, whatever, however that works. So your concerns with Laferriere are definitely warranted playing on that top line. And I want to get your guys' line combinations too, what you want to see going into playoffs after this too. But like if that happens and you have McDavid going up against Kopitar, Kempe, and Laferriere, I mean, that you would expect that could open up some production opportunities for a third line of Byfield, Dubois, and Fiala. Because if they don't have to play a shutdown type role against the Oilers' top players, and they're going up against players like McLeod or Carrick or Henrique, like I like their chances of scoring more than I would than Byfield playing with Kopitar and Kempe against McDavid. So I think that just opens up kind of you're probably losing a little bit when you have Laferriere. I get that because he's obviously an inexperienced player when it comes to playoff hockey in the NHL. But I think you gain a lot when you have that depth that the Kings have now with Dubois, Byfield, and Fiala on the third line.
You guys I think you guys are just thinking about it on a 1-for-1 transfer, and it's not. McDavid's playing 25 minutes.
Yeah.
That first line for the Oilers is playing 25 minutes plus. The Kings line can't play that amount. You're just not. I mean, Kopitar, as good as he is, he's not playing that amount.
But that also kind of goes to
so
what Joe's saying,
then it's not a 1-for-1.
But that goes to what
third
Joe's
line
saying,
for the Kings are going to be playing 16 minutes.
They have to take advantage of their opportunities. They have to take advantage of those 10, 12 minutes that they're going to get against the third, fourth line. And I mean, Fiala, does
it feel like we just have to catch lightning in a bottle like 6 times to win the series? Like it
just 4 times. Just four times.
Fiala only averages like 15 minutes a game, and he's still one of the best producers on the Kings. Like that's the thing is, you have to give your scoring players that are the best offensive players. Like Byfield at times was the best offensive player in the Kings.
Laugh is just not good. Like how can we not?
But I don't think.
How can we withhold 20-something minutes of McDavid? We just can't. So I don't think you're losing. Byfield's better than Laugh. I just think he is.
But look at recency. Look at how Byfield's played with Kopitar and Kempe. He hasn't been good. I mean, I think he's been okay. Like I don't think he's been bad, but he hasn't been producing. And the confidence that he gained playing with Dubois and Fiala last night, like that was huge. That was huge for Quentin Byfield. And I want to see that.
Hey, congrats on the $500K. If you want to send a little bit to Hockey Royalty.
I think that, and yeah, that bonus is great because like after the game too, like that was one of the few times I've seen Quentin Byfield smile after a game, let alone a win or a loss. So that was great. But I think like Hiller said the other day, I think he put a lot of pressure on himself playing with Andrei Kopitar and Adrian Kempe. And you don't want that to happen. You want to see that Quentin Byfield that we saw at the beginning of the year when he was just free flowing, playing with so much confidence. And I think you can get that with Quentin Byfield playing with Dubois because I think Byfield probably understands Dubois probably more than any other player. It seems like they've kind of grown like pretty close to each other. Yeah. And if you have Kevin Fiala on the other side, who's we all know how he can play, I feel like those three can generate a lot of scoring chances to the point where, hey, if they're only getting a couple matchups against the third, fourth line, I like their chances against those lines more than I would against probably Kopitar, Byfield, and Kempe against those lines.
I think you're right, Brandon, that like it could hurt that first line from a production standpoint, but I just don't know how much they're going to produce. Like Kopitar, his task is going to be defending McDavid. Chances, or again, as Russ said, McDavid or Draisaitl, or one of those top 2 lines is going to be Kopitar's job. So that's his first priority. It's not going to be offense. Now, again, who knows? Maybe Hiller goes back, puts Byfield up there, and that I'm not against that.
I just view it this way, and this is a top film, Lord of the Rings. Everybody's seen it, right? We're talking about the Battle of Helm's Deep, right? And all the orcs are running up things. That's just going to be constant pressure from Edmonton. And, you got the human and the dwarf coming outside. They're going to throw themselves onto that bridge. Yeah, that counter punch can work, but eventually the orcs break through. So I just feel like you look at the 25 minutes of McDavid going against that first line, and you're asking Kopitar just to play constant defense. And Kempe, yeah, he can play defense, but you're there for him to score. So then you're not only taking his skill set away. Like it's almost like, hey, let's barricade against the barrage and hope that the third line can be our savior. And has said nobody ever who has won a Stanley Cup that the third line was going to be their savior of the team. Like I just don't believe that is a way to win a series. And like I get it. It's the way to win this series.
But that's the thing.
Yes.
I mean, that kind of won the Oilers the series last year. Their third and fourth line won them this series. I mean, the way Yamamoto played, the way Costin, but I agree at that.
That wasn't the game plan.
I totally understand at that point. Like that, you don't want to go into a series with that mindset that your bottom six is going to win. But for the Kings, that is their mindset. This is why Blake made the trade that he made, so he can have the top 9 that he has. And you have Blake Lizotte, and he's mentioned all 4 centers. So they're going to need all 4 lines to come in and produce at times. They're going to need to get production from the fourth line. They're going to need to get production from the third line. They can't rely on Kopitar and Kempe to carry them or the Nysliden to carry them. So this is why Dubois here. I'm not like I want to see him produce. Mm-hmm. So that's why I want to see him play with Fiala or Byfield to give him those opportunities because he hasn't produced this year, and maybe there's been question marks about who he's been playing with. But if you give him that chance, I think he's shown the capability that he can be an offensive producer, especially with Fiala.
You know what wins all the time is the Lord of the Rings series leap. So if you don't know what an orc is, get to watch it. It's a good, it's a solid 12 hours. The director's cut. Grab some popcorn, some booze, get a cuddle buddy, and enjoy yourself some Lord of the Rings. I think you're right there, Russ. In a way, yeah, you want players to play in the situations that they're given, right? PLD can't change that. He's going to be on the third line. He's going to be instructed that, and you want him to take advantage of the mismatch that he has. I just don't think it overcomes the top 6 mismatch that we're taking in.
So I look at it this way. Under Jim Hiller, the Kings have been, for any Premier League fans, Burnley under Sean Dyche, who is now managing my Everton football club.
I was doing analogies here for the highest grossing trilogy ever, and you're bringing in some random team in Europe. Okay, let's go.
Well, but what they did, because when they played the top teams, they what they called it was they parked the bus. They had 11 guys in the box and just hope for the best, shut it down, maybe get lucky on a counter. The Kings, they're not hiding the fact that that's how they play. And Jim Hiller has taken it to a whole other level. Like he has done, like, remember when he came in, he's like more of the power play coach, the offensive guy. Let's see, how will he do this? Will he open it up a little bit more? Will we see anything different? Quite the opposite. He has locked shit down. So they're not going to play Edmonton straight up. So that's why I say, Randon, it's this series because, well, I guess this is how they play against everybody. So maybe it's every series, but like Kopitar's job is going to be, again, whether it's going to be McDavid or Draisaitl between he and Danault, we'll see. But their main job is going to be to slow down, to stop defensively McDavid and Draisaitl and company, because the Kings aren't a team that's going to like live in the offensive zone. It's just not how they play. So that's what the way I look at this is. It sounds like this whole doom and gloom of like but that's just their style. That they're very transparent about that.
So let's get into this. I think, Joe, you piqued my interest here a little bit, and we're going an hour here, but it's playoff hockey, so we might go 2 hours. So buckle up, people. Joe, you talked about it a little bit, like, hey, it's McDavid line, the Draisaitl line. They often pair them together.
Yeah.
And you look at, hey, Danault's not a shabby defenseman either, right? And the nice line, we haven't even brought up the nice line tonight one time.
Sure.
We're talking about how the Kopitar line sits there. So is this going to be a tandem arrangement? Is this going to be 1 versus 1? Because if you can convince me to a tandem thing where Danault gets a couple face-offs, Kopitar gets a couple face-offs, and this kind of a thing, because I love Arvidsson's scrappiness. I love Trevor Moore's scrappiness and sniper ability. Joe, by the way, 30 goals. Congratulations again on that bold prediction. So if you're talking about just, hey, let's cycle these guys and kind of go back and forth and see who's having a better game. Maybe you can convince me there.
I think the thing that is a little concerning, though, is I was just looking at the stats last year, and Kopitar was outscored 7-1 when he was on the ice with Draisaitl. I think it was over 40 minutes. So
he was mostly Draisaitl, I think. Yeah.
Danault did a pretty good job against McDavid, if I remember correctly. And I think a little bit was that because that line was playing really well in the offensive zone, which I think we talked about this earlier in the year, which if you're going to attack the Oilers, then attack them from an offensive standpoint. Don't just sit back and wait for
my whole freaking thing. Yes.
Yeah. Just attack it from an offensive standpoint. So I'm wondering, like maybe don't give Kopitar that responsibility. Maybe give it to, it's probably sound blasphemous, but maybe give it to Dubois, Byfield, and Fiala. Just see what happens. So see what happens. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be explosive, but you're not. It hasn't really worked in the past. Draisaitl's had his way with the Kings in these two playoffs matchups the last 2 years. And if you're just going to continue to roll out Kopitar, who seemed like he was pretty slow against McDavid and Draisaitl and the numbers point to that fact, then attack him. Attack him offensively. Try to score with them on the ice as opposed to just sitting back and waiting for them to score on your end. So I'm just worried that they're going to try to.
How does that happen, Russ? Like you're saying, like that should happen, but you
put your best offensive players against Draisaitl. You don't put Andrei Kopitar, who's going to play probably more of a defensive style game against Draisaitl and McDavid, and probably have that in the back of his mind because that's just kind of what he's always been as a player. He's obviously produced. There's no question about that. But
so now PLD can't produce against the bottom six. He's got to produce against Draisaitl. His legacy continues.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, right or not? I mean, because you're asking Kopitar to do something he's not normally used to doing, but you want a highly offensive line in Byfield PLD, Russ. So is it that line that has to match up against Draisaitl?
I don't say they have. I don't say they have to match up, but I wouldn't mind seeing them. I just don't want to see Kopitar on the ice every time Draisaitl is on the ice. Is what I'm saying. Like, don't have that be your singular matchup because it seemed like especially at home, it seemed like that was the case every time. Like Draisaitl hops all over the boards, here comes Kopitar. Because I was like, there's other numbers too. Like Drew Doughty was outscored with Draisaitl on the ice. It seemed like nothing worked against them. So
yeah,
put Blake Lizotte
was an
out
absolute
there.
Horse in that matchup.
Put Blake Lizotte out there. Blake Lizotte we know how feisty he can be. He's obviously a lot smaller than Draisaitl, but hell, like at this point, like you got to try some new stuff because the last 2 years it obviously hasn't worked.
Yeah, and I going back to some of the additions that Edmonton has made. What it does, like Henrique, what it does though, they've got a few, like they can move guys around. Like Henrique can play third line center or he can play first line left wing, right? So, and they got guys like Nugent Hopkins that can do the same thing. Nugent Hopkins might be their third line center or he's going to be a winger in the top six. And I think that flexibility that they have, sometimes they want to put McDavid and Draisaitl together. That's what makes this team so dangerous, especially when they're at home. And so that's what makes the whole matchup thing pretty tough, which goes back to what Russ said, is that's why they got Dubois, right? To really kind of help offset some of that stuff. And so I know we started this with our X factors and it's turned into an entire conversation, which started with Dubois, because I think for obvious reasons, he is a huge part of this series. And I think what Randa was getting at was, he's probably the X factor. So we'll just get him out of the way before we, talk about somebody else. So, I guess, Russ, who other than him would you think is a potential X factor in this series? Are you going up front? Is it somebody on the blue line, the goaltending? What do you think?
For me, I'm going back in, and I'm going to say Mikey Anderson. I think a lot of the matchups and a lot of those numbers I pointed to, too, with Kopitar, he was outscored against Draisaitl 6-1 in the playoff series last year. And I feel like Mikey didn't really have as well or as good as a playoff series as he probably would have liked. And probably same thing with Drew. They have a lot of similar numbers, but I think with Drew, we kind of know what to expect, I feel like, with him. I'm not really too worried. about Drew, but I think Mikey, especially this year more than past years, he's struggled at times, and we haven't seen him be that kind of shutdown type defenseman that he's been, or that he can be and be capable of. So he's obviously going to play on the top pair. He's going to be one of the pairs, I would hope, against Draisaitl McDavid, because we don't want to see England on the ice against those two. That would just be scary. Joe, did you see that goal that Reichel scored against England and Moverara? Like, why were those two on the ice together, first of all?
First of all, I saw that, and I'm like, same question. Why are they on the ice together? They won't play a righty on the left, but they'll play a slow lefty on the right.
It's so funny because I'm sure he was thinking in the back of his mind, he's like, oh, okay, offensive zone face off. Nothing's going to go wrong. Even if they lose it, I'm sure they can just dump it in. Sure enough, they win the draw, and he still fucking beats them down the ice.
Trust me, Russ, I saw that goal, and I'm like, this is going to be bad. In a few days, this is going to be bad.
And sure enough, it was, but it wasn't that game. But yeah, so that's why my X factor is Mikey Anderson, because I feel like he's going to have to play that solid shutdown type of style of game that he's been known to play. And hey, be that annoying and get under the Oilers' skin like he did in the first round series, where Oilers fans were calling him dirty, even though we all know he's not a dirty player. But play on that level, play on that line where you're going that dirty line and getting under those Oilers and skin, where you're getting under Draisaitl's skin, getting under McDavid's skin, because as much as Oilers fans want to make the excuse, McDavid's been suspended probably more times than Mikey Anderson in his career, and gotten more 5-minute majors in his career than Mikey Anderson. So he's not afraid to dish out that punishment. So I want to see Mikey Anderson start dishing out that punishment. So I want to see a physical Mikey Anderson this series, where he's playing heavy, hard hockey. If someone's in front of the net, I want to see cross checks to the back. Don't take penalties, but I want to see you playing physical in front of the net, where you're not giving up any space in your own zone. And I feel like this is going to be a series where Mikey Anderson's going to have to prove to a lot of Kings fans, a lot of Kings management, that he can be that top pair for a successful team in the playoffs.
I like it. I like the spiciness there. Joe, your X factor there, or do you want to comment on what Russ said?
I like that. I was thinking about it. Was there somebody on the blue line to go with that's an X factor? And I didn't come away with anything, but I especially because he didn't have a great start to the season, got hurt, seemed to end the season better than he started it. At least it's been a little shaky. And listen, we talked about the centers having a tall task dealing with McDavid and Draisaitl. He's going to be out there against those guys. So it's a big series for him. So yeah, I want to give a quick shout out to a lot of the people in the chats that have mentioned Quinton Byfield's name. Quinton Byfield can't go a series without scoring a goal, guys. Like he that can't happen again. He needs to be a difference maker in this series. I was really leaning on making him my X factor. So I'll just say that I agree with what a lot of the folks in the chat are saying. Like if he goes a series shutout, it's cricket. It's curtain.
Honorable mention.
Yeah. But I'm gonna go with Kevin Fiala, just because in a series again where the Kings he's one of the few guys that can make plays for himself. He can be creative. He can turn something from nothing into something. And I think that he's one of the few guys that can do that on this roster, and they really need him to be somebody that's elevated. And I'm pretty sure he was hurt at parts of last season, right? He only played a few games, I think. So this is a big opportunity for him too. And that could kind of go hand in hand with Dubois if they are indeed playing together a lot. So I think this is an opportunity for him to have a big series, because I think he's one of these guys that can create for himself in a series where I just don't know how much there's going to be offensive opportunities for the Kings. A lot of them could come on his stick.
I really like it. I think Fiala, obviously you're paying him some money there, and he got brought in to be that dynamic player, and we all felt like, man, if we had Kevin Fiala in the other series, because he was healthy and this and that, he's healthy this time. He's healthy.
Yeah.
So
I think he said he was like 80% last year. I mean, take it for what it's worth. But yeah, he still had 6 points. I think Holden92 here in the chat said he had 6 points in the 3 games. So he was definitely producing, but I'm sure he wasn't the fully healthy.
I mean, as much as I bashed what you were saying, Russ, earlier, I do think he's an X factor. I think he's the best player on the team. He is the most dynamic player in the team, and he's the one who can take over a series the easiest on this team. And so I do think that Kevin Fiala is the biggest X factor, bar none, on this roster. And I don't think it's even close, to be honest with you. I think he's the only player that has that type of dynamic capability to take over a series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking about mentioning Cam Talbot too. I don't know if necessarily he'll be an X factor. You just want to see Cam Talbot play a solid game.
Don't lose any games.
What was that?
Don't lose any games.
I would say the goaltending has to be, for sure.
He doesn't have to steal games. Just don't lose games. But the reason I didn't want to pick Cam Talbot because I feel like there might be times where we have to rely on David Riddick in a game or two this series. I mean, if things don't go well, you go down 2-0, come back at home, you're down 2-0, start David Riddick game 3. Put something new out there, even if it isn't Cam Talbot's fault. Like Riddick has shown no problem to be a quality goalie this year, so give him an opportunity. So it's kind of why I didn't want to, but I did want to mention there's still that's still a pretty big factor in this playoffs, obviously, with the goaltending and how it's going to shake up. Obviously, you have 2 totally new goaltenders coming into this playoff series compared to the last 2.
Russ, to that end, Money Puck, goalies of at least 15 games, goal save above expected per 60, all situations. David Riddick is 3rd in the NHL.
Those 3 games against San Jose probably help him quite
a bit. Hey, it helps.
So my honorable mention is kind of off the beaten path here, and I think I've always had a soft spot for this character, but Grundstrom is my honorable mention.
Okay.
And the reason being is this: I think we talked his game is physical. He doesn't fight, which in the playoffs doesn't matter because most people won't go into dropping the gloves because it's the playoffs. So his physicalness is within the game. So he drops bodies, he hits a lot, and whether he's on the 4th line or the 3rd line or however they want to mix that in, I think that he could be an X factor within the physicality. You got Corey Perry, you got Kane playing on the 3rd line now. Like you're going to need bodies to counteract that. And I know a lot of fans are going to be, hey, hockey royalty, you guys said that physicality didn't mean anything and all this kind of stuff like that going on. Well, we want physicality with skill, and Grundstrom has the ability to shoot. He had seasons over 10%. He's had series where he was on the 2nd line for the Kings against the Edmonton Oilers. So I think that Grundstrom's an honorable mention for me is because getting that lifeblood back into that 4th line, getting some physicality, getting that kind of stuff. If he is indeed in the roster, there's been no plug one way or the other. I mean, obviously Turcotte went down to the Reign, so that seems like he's not going to be there. Akil Thomas could have that kind of spot. We all know Trevor Lewis is not getting taken out of the lineup. So where does Grundstrom fit in that? But I like Akil. I like Grundstrom. I just think it's an honorable mention because I feel like he's going to have a moment in this series. Where my X factor is really is going to be Victor Arvidsson. And I think that you look at a 60-point player multiple times, a 30-goal scorer, been injured. He's kind of been silent a little bit. Come in here, you look at a lot of the box scores. That nice line has just been a consistent line, not a great line. But we need Victor Arvidsson to score points. And he's a righty for a reason on the power play, which was my X factor for the team. I think that you look at that line is going to be tasked to play a lot of defense. But I think he needs to push that envelope and be that 60-point player in order for this team to win.
Yeah, I've been really confident, or I've been liking a lot of what I've been seeing out of the nice line with Deneau, Moore, and Arvidsson of late. I don't know why they weren't just immediately put back together because at times they've been by far the best line on the team, let alone probably the best line in the NHL, just the way they play. It seems like they all just kind of know where each one is out on the ice at all times. So I like that shout out. just kind of go back to Grunstrom. So if Grunstrom's healthy, you want him in the lineup, and then what? Brandon, I'll ask you. And then what is the lines that you want to see then with Grunstrom in the lineup?
I mean, Akil Thomas has played well, and obviously I would like Lewis to sit, but that's not going to happen. So, I think LaFerriere is also not going to sit because they just trusted him long term. So it's really going to be Akil Thomas over Grunstrom. And I've liked the way Akil Thomas has played, and I'm not going to take anything away from him. But I think the physicality and the size and the wrecking ball mentality of Grunstrom adds a different forward mentality, because even though Lewis is a grinder, Lozada is a grinder, they're physical in the pestering way, not physical in the physical way. And I think that kind of having that wrecking ball with a shot can really change things. I got to tip my cap to Akil Thomas, but I really only think that's where he comes in. But I think we have to have that kind of player. When you in the bottom six, you have Corey Perry, like I said, you have Evander Kane, and, Henrique, and then you got Carrick, who led the HM fights. Like, you're going to have some guys that are going to be throwing bones there in 5-on-5. You just need a guy that can have some size and not be able to afraid to dish it back. And England is not that player. Like, he doesn't have any offensive capability. So everybody on Twitter who's gonna at me for what I'm saying here, Grunstrom can play offense. Like, he can shoot, he can play. He was on the second line for a reason, because he's had multiple shifts of carrying that line, let alone being on that line. He's just inconsistent. So I really just think that type of player is underrated in the hockey league. I think he's a very poor man's Kachuk. Like, he can shoot, he has okay hands, and he has the physicality, and he can be just a silent pest. Very poor man's that type of game. But I think teams need those types of players, and we don't have any in the bottom six.
Yeah, he's a solid bottom six power forward. I feel like this team has kind of missed lately. So, Joe, what would be your lines?
I would stick with what we saw a lot yesterday in terms of the top nine. I would start with LaFerriere, with Kopitar and Kempe, keep the Danault line together, put QB with Dubois and Fiala. I know it's not going to happen. I would echo what Brandon said about Akil Thomas, and I would even throw Alex Turcotte in that mix too. Would be just so much of an improvement over what Trevor Lewis can bring, because I think you're looking at a series where safe is useless in this series. And I know Trevor Lewis can be a fine defensive forward, but that's going to mean absolutely nothing in this series for the matchups that he's going to be out there against. We talked about needing the bottom six to be effective, and it would be nice to have somebody that with a little bit of offensive capability.
Which I don't think Akil Thomas can't play physical, because he's a gamer. Like, he plays. Oh, yeah, I know. He's asked to play defense. He's asked to play offense. If you asked him to throw in the pads and get in the pipes, he would do it. So he's a gamer. So, like, I'm not taking anything from Akil Thomas. No, I think Grunstrom adds that physicality, because that's his game ipso facto.
I'm agreeing with you, and then I would love to see him in over Lewis, but just echoing that I know that's not going to happen. But I guess the reasoning for that is kind of goes back to my whole underlying philosophy is, when you limit your own upside, you're going to limit your upside, and the Kings are voluntarily limiting their upside yet again. So I would play Grunstrom as well with Lozada and Lewis for all the reasons you said. Grunstrom has historically been a 10% shooter at 5-on-5. For a team, again, I'm looking for players that can find goals. Where can I find goals? And Carl Grunstrom can score. He's got a shot that he can score from distance. Talk about somebody scoring off the rush. He can score from the top of the circle. He can score from the outside. So that's what I'm looking for. And it would be nice. I mean, I agree. I see some Kaliev talks in the chat. Not playing Kaliev over Grunstrom, though. I'm just not. And if you told me Kaliev's playing over Lewis, sure. But it ain't going to happen. So there's one spot on that fourth line. It's not Lozada or Lewis. It's that, fourth line left wing, and I think it should be Carl Grunstrom because I think he can score.
Yeah, I like the shout. I'm totally with you. Like it's kind of, we got any indication how the lines are going to shake out. First of all, I want to see them start out with going 12-6. It certainly seems like 11-7.
So do I.
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily stick with it. Just start out with that, especially if you're going to have Carl Grunstrom be healthy and be in the lineup. Then you have 12 pretty reliable forwards you can run with. So I agree with Brandon where you have that Laferriere, Kopitar, Kempe first line. You have Moore, Deneau, Arvidsson second line. Or I guess third line, fourth line, whatever you want to say it is. Byfield, Dubois, Fiala. And then you can have Grunstrom, Lizotte, and Lewis. I kind of like what Holden 92 here said. He said, I'd rather see Grunstrom on the first line than Laugh if they do end up playing Fiala, PLD, and Dubois together, or Fiala, PLD, and Byfield together, which I don't mind that, actually. And I know it'd be a lot to ask for a player that hasn't really played in quite some time, but hey, if he's fresh, he's healthy, he obviously played a game in the AHL, put him up. Be like, if you want that physicality against players like Draisaitl and whatnot, he hasn't really shown a lot of defensive capabilities. But if you're replacing a player like Laferriere, which I agree, Randon, he's not the best. He's still a first-year player. But if you can give him those chances to be that type of player on the fourth line, playing with Lizotte and Lewis, then I like that matchup a lot more. So that would be interesting to watch for, to see where they do end up playing or deploying Carl Grunstrom if he's healthy.
I think you're looking at a situation here where Grunstrom has just been kind of like, he is what he is. Hey, he's on the second line. He's going to be a physical player, and he's going to shoot. He's on third line. He's going to be a physical player. He's going to shoot. So, if he's on the first line, yeah, I mean, you're going to see hits against McDavid. You're going to see him putting his body there, and you're going to see him trying to shoot from the circle, and he's just going to be that player. Like, I mean, Reese's are good for a reason because they're consistent, and that's what Carl Grunstrom is. He's just a consistent player, and I think that type of player is good anywhere in the lineup. Now, can he consistently be on the first line? No, he can't, because otherwise he wouldn't be cycled in and out. But to play on a situation or in a part of a game, I wouldn't be surprised if you throw Grunstrom up. And again, this is no shade on Akil Thomas, because I think he's a gamer. But you know, I've been a Tonka fan the entire time that we've gotten him. I just love his game, love the way he plays. I think he's the type of player that wins Stanley Cups. I just really do. And you know, I don't understand why he gets thrown the shade that he does, because he's just consistent. Yeah, he won't score for a little bit because he's on the fourth line. He's playing 10 minutes a night or whatever. But he can bury 3, 4, 5 pucks within a couple weeks. He definitely has the hits. He led the team in hits until they got England in here. So like, he's definitely throwing the body. He's going around there, and he's got an underrated vision. He's just my type of player, which I really like. And you know, like, you look at teams have been finding those types of players. Tampa Bay brought in Pat Maroon, guy that has an okay shot, good at finding players, good physicality, bigger body. Like, those types of Stanley Cup teams bring in those type of players, and we have one here, and he's underappreciated, you know? So that, I mean, he's just my boy. Like, I mean, that might be a homer pick for me as an underrated type of player, but
No,
He played good last year.
I love some Carl.
One of the best forwards on the team last year in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I want to go back to something Russ said with the 12-6, 11-7. They don't have 7 good enough defensemen to do this.
Yeah.
Unless you're bringing up Clark, like, there's no reason to go 12.
Yeah, and they're not, you know. And if 11-7 means we might see Mulverhurry and Englund on the ice together ever, just don't do it.
Count me out.
Just get the golf clubs ready.
I won't even
That's
tune in
time.
to that game. Yeah.
And I'll say this too, like if things don't go well, like this is like we're talking about Grunstrom. Like, I wouldn't be mad if they just say, hey, like, I know Akil Thomas doesn't have the experience, the playoff experience, but you got to get it at some point. And if you're coming back to LA down 2-0, give me some of those young guys. Give me something new, something fresh, depending on how the games have gone.
Mhm.
Because he's a smaller guy, but I love the way that Akil Thomas has played. He's not afraid to go to the front of the net. He's been scored. He scored those greasy goals where he falls down after every goal that he scored. So, and that's because he's got that work ethic to put himself in
And he's got the brain. He's got the offensive brain. He's got the offensive skill, the ability. Like
he
there's
plays like a
there's
center
talent
should.
there.
Like he's always on the puck. Always.
Yeah. Like here's the thing. There's a talent to that. And I'm not going to say Akil Thomas is Zach Hyman, but I guess what I'm getting at is so many people get on Zach Hyman because he scores all of his goals. If it was that easy, everybody would do it. It's not that easy. He knows timing. He knows spacing. He knows when and where to make his reads. Like there's a skill to that. Otherwise, everybody would do it when they play with McDavid. But who else has scored 50 next to McDavid over the last handful of years? I don't know. Have they had anybody that scored 50 next to him?
Nugent Hopkins?
He had 100 points, but
I don't know.
50 goals.
But so like it's not as easy as it seems, just because you look at the chart and it shows where his goals are from the crease.
So Joe Paterino is predicting 50 goals for Akil Thomas.
That is not my bold prediction next year.
No, I like Akil Thomas too. And I think we're kind of skipping over my actual prediction was Victor Arvidsson. I really think.
Yeah, you said
I know.
That.
Yeah. And I think we're skipping over him because I think he could be the real X factor. I mean, he's one. The power play was my team X factor. So him on the power play, we need that right. We've been talking about it all season. The Voldemort of Gabe Velarde has terrorized fans in what he's done this season for Winnipeg. I think that righty shot, the way that power play flowed, was bar none the best it's looked all season with him on that first line.
Yep.
So, I mean, Victor Arvidsson is my guy. I think he can get there. And then, dude, I hope you make $7.5 million next year somewhere else. So, like, get your points in the playoffs, my man. No, nothing from anybody else. Okay,
I like it.
Oh yeah, we agree.
All right. So, all right, let's go into our predictions here, and our official predictions with the writing will be at hockeyroyalty.com. I think this team has a lot of things going for it. I think this team has a lot of things going against it, and obviously we've lost twice to this team. So nobody's getting their hopes up. Nobody's going into their night with a milk and some cookies and hoping to get Christmas presents the next day. But I really think that this team has a chance if all things align, right? We need lightning in a bottle. We need hell to freeze over. We need all this kind of stuff like that. But there is a chance, and there's a lot of things going on there. But what is your realistic prediction, and why do you think so? I'm going to start with Joe here. What is your prediction for the season or for the series, and why do you feel that way?
I'm just trying to find what Edmonton's weak spot is that the Kings can exploit enough to win 4 games, and I'm having a real hard time with that. I think Edmonton wins the series in 5. I think the Kings have been worse under Jim Hiller. I think Edmonton can throw a lot of different things at them. I think unless Skinner just plays like Skinner the first half of the year, that's a pretty good defense group. Ekholm and Bouchard's one of the best top pairs in the league. It's better than it's one of the best top pairs in the league. I know CC and Nurse is not a great middle pair, but I think Edmonton knows that. I think Knobloch knows that, and I think that they don't. And I don't know how much it shows up against a team that can't score and is not really trying to score sometimes too with the Kings. And I think you're going to see. I'm not the biggest Darnay guy. I know he has made improvements this year on the third pair, but Kulak's a pretty underrated defenseman. I think I kind of like what he does out there. So that decor is not as bad as it seems. So I'm just trying to find where the weakness is that LA is able to exploit, and I can't find it. I think Edmonton wins this series comfortably.
Russ, do you feel the same as your co-host here, Joe Paterino, or do you have a different edge to the same skate?
No, I definitely feel the same. But I'll say this is I feel like the Kings actually on paper, I feel like depth-wise, they're a better team. And I think they come into this series obviously healthier than they have in the past 2 years. So if you add those two together and you have that familiarity playing against McDavid and Draisaitl and Bouchard and all those players, I think, and I think you have to add that added kind of vengeance to in the mindset where, I mean, when you have Drew Doughty, who we all know who Drew Doughty is and who he is as a player and his attitude and everything like that, I feel like he's got to get to a point, and I'm sure a lot of other players in the Kings too are going to get to a point where this can't happen, where you lose to this team 3 years in a row. And I feel like with all that added together, I think the Kings can win in 7 games. I really do. And might be, and no, probably not a lot of numbers to back that up or anything like that. But you look at some of the games that they had played this year specifically, they were all close. Even that last game in Edmonton, like, I felt like the Oilers were getting a lot of chances, but the goals that they scored were just kind of, I don't want to say fluke bounces, but maybe more fortunate bounces left and right here or there. But so I think if you add all that, yeah, I think the Kings have a legit opportunity where they can. I mean, their backs are against the wall, but their backs were against the wall the last 2 years too, and they still showed the capability to compete with them and take the series to 6-7 games. So now, if you have all these players healthy now, more than it had in the past, you have added player like P.L. Dubois, you have Quentin Byfield playing to the level he is. I think there's a chance that the Kings can win in 7. So I'll pick Kings in 7.
Russ going big there. And, you know, we're talking about all podcasts how Edmonton knows how to play the Kings. The Kings know how to play Edmonton too. So can they squeak that out? Can they get where we need to go? Kings in 7 for Russ. My heart says Edmonton in 4 because of the turmoil that I've been through the entire season. And how much sit in front of a TV with my brothers has just been years off my life. And according to Lieb, hair follicles on my scalp. But man, I really look at this back and forth, and I think this here, and I think it's either going to be Edmonton in 5 or it's going to be LA in 7.
Pick one.
And I'm going to pick LA in 7.
Love it.
Because the reason this is this. I think our power play is way better. I think we have more depth down the line. And if you want to believe in your team, which I do, Rob Blake built this team to win the playoffs. He built this team to beat Edmonton down the middle. And all the shade that I threw all podcasts was just misdirection, smoke shadows. That third line is going to dominate, I think, LA in 7. I really do. Because I don't think that McDavid's healthy, 1.
There's that too, yeah.
I don't think McDavid's healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the team is very streaky, as we've seen the beginning of the season, middle of the season. They're streaky as we are. So they can go into a little fade here. I do think they know how to play us better than everybody else, but we know how to play them better. And if our power play, again, my X factor, comes to play in this game, Victor Arvidsson, my personal X factor, we win this in 7. And I hope so, because I need a mother effing playoff win, please.
Yeah.
My A's are going to Sacramento or Vegas or disappearing. My Niners have lost multiple Super Bowls. I need a cosmic interaction here. Otherwise, I might be jumping off a bridge into a river, which I can very well swim into. So
health is probably the biggest thing to hang. Each of the last 2 years, the Kings have missed not just pieces, but significant pieces, right? From Doughty to Fiala, go down the line. Like so that is a absolutely a factor of the Kings are missing guys last couple of playoffs. Everybody's healthy right now. I mean, as healthy as you're going to be in game 83.
I just don't want to, Russ said this here, and maybe a mini rant. I'm tired of the term on paper. Yeah, Kings, we're good on paper. We're good on paper. We're good on paper. Let's effing put it on the ice. Mm-hmm. Let's go out there and put our D on the table. Let's go out there and PLD, earn your 8.5. Go in there and run amok. LaFerriere, you've been given confidence all season. Play your series. The teams on this, the players on this team need to play up to their capability, and I'm tired of this. I really am. I'm tired of the team coming to the playoffs and, oh, we're the underdog. We should have lose. No, come on. Let's go. Let's go. Kings, let's go. Like, I mean, we can play. We can play with this team. And it just hasn't looked great. And that's why everybody feels, and I feel included, that we could lose in 4. But we have the capabilities. The way the team was playing at the beginning of the year is in our DNA. It's there. Can we tap back into it and counterpunch like we used to? Can we get the saves when we need to? Because if the Kings play like they did in the beginning of the series, at the beginning of the year, there's no stopping us. There's really no.
Game 4, they were up 3-0. And that close to going up 3-1 in the series last year. I think Kevin, that was the first game Kevin Fiala and Gabe Velarde, I could be wrong, came back. But they were right there, man. They were right there. First year. It took them to 7 games without Drew Doughty. So it's I know the Oilers have definitely gotten better. I think the Kings have gotten better. And I feel like we've reached a pinnacle now of Rob Blake's tenure as a general manager with the Kings.
They either go on a run or this series is over in 4 or 5 games and it's a new administration, right?
Yeah. This is where we're at. This is it's now or never for the team, for Rob Blake, for this entire franchise. I feel like it's just everything's gotten to this point where, okay, now you have to win the series, or you're gonna get a volcano growing out of Los Angeles at that point, and Tommy Lee Jones is gonna come out to save the day. So we've reached this. This is it. This is it for a lot of, or else we're gonna see a lot of changes now in the summer. So,
do you think there's any call-ups?
Call-ups?
Yeah. Do you think Turcotte gets called up for?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I think if things don't go well the first 2 games, you could see Akil Thomas, Alex Turcotte. Maybe I wouldn't be surprised to see Brant Clark get a game if things aren't going well.
The train is ready. The train is in the station, fully gassed.
Why not, right?
Randon, real quick, before what you just said, like it's in the DNA. Remember, it was you, I think, early in the season that brought it up, that the Kings were going a lot more when they got to the offensive zone, a lot more east-west than they were historically, rather than just north-south. It may be in the DNA, and that's where my science is going to stop because I don't know where else to go with this comparison, but the coach isn't going to bring it out of them. The coach, they haven't played that way under Hiller. It's all been limited. It's get in. He wants a hard forecheck, but immediately retreat, it seems, when things don't go their way. So you're right, Randon. That's the frustrating part is there's skill on this team, but Rob Blake did a poor job with the back end, so they can't really utilize that skill up front. And the coach now either realizes that and is just trying to win the best way he can, or this is what he thinks is best.
But is that a recipe for success? Because if Hiller doesn't win a series, he's not a head coach for the Kings.
So that's the thing. I think this is Hiller.
So he's got to let the players play.
I think this is where I would love to see Jim Hiller, kind of how I'd love to see Todd McLellan. I'm very curious to see just now that we're talking.
Joe, do you think would you like to see Jim Hiller the way we thought Jim Hiller was when he first started out?
So that's kind of what I'm getting at is now similarly, I want to see where Todd McLellan ends up and what does he do with a new fresh team, fresh roster, and what does Jim Hiller really want to play? Because Jim Hiller, say he is this offensive coach, power play coach, he wants to open things up a little bit, which that could very well be the case. You can't do that with the Kings decor. So maybe he's just like, you know what? We can't do this. We can't play this way, even if we want to, because my general manager has hamstrung me with defensemen that can't play in 2024 effectively. They can't move pucks efficiently. So,
But he won't get a job if he doesn't play.
well, but I think my thing is he's looking at it as I got to try to just hunker down and win this series as best I can
with the personnel he has.
because people are going to look at the results, right? Of what is Hiller done.
That's what I mean, and that's
No,
what Rob
if
Blake
Hiller
said.
wins-
That's what Rob Blake said at the midseason press conference. He said they're just going to rely on wins and losses now. He said it in plain sight. He doesn't care about the numbers. He cares about wins and losses. So,
all right, I'll give it to you guys. If the Kings beat the Oilers, does Hiller have a job next season?
Ooh. I'm going to say no. I think they're going to go with a more established coach. But I guess it depends on how far they go. Like, are you saying he
No,
wins a
just
cup?
beat the Oilers. Just beat the Oilers.
and then lose the second round.
I'm going to say they go with a more experienced coach, but I guess it wouldn't shock me if Hiller sticks around.
I'm going to tell you guys right now, if they beat the Oilers, then everybody's sticking around. That's just
Okay.
come on.
That was my next question. Was if they beat the Oilers, does Rob Blake still have a job?
Well,
Yeah.
if Hiller sticks around, then Rob Blake's sticking around because I don't think
No GM. No, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't think a new GM is going to keep Hiller. I would think he'd want to bring in his own guy.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? Maybe he really likes Hiller and he's got a connection. Who
You know,
knows?
who-
But yeah,
Who's our guy? Our fans. Dude, you guys are pumping it. Like, we started out at 50. Now we're at 69. Giggity goo. But we're at 146 coming in here. Appreciate you guys coming in here. I think we're still going to keep going because I think we got some more stuff going on. I just want to it's just tough for this team because, 12 and 14. 12 looked like, hey, like we're this bottom feeder, but we made a lot of good moves and they played well towards the end of the season, right? They had a positive goal differential and record against the Pacific. We did not, right? And then 14, you expected that because 13, and all that yada 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 going forward. I just think that this team is just such an unknown, and we're trying to punch and have a punter's chance and all those cliches. It's just tough for me. It's just tough for me to feel like that, like that we have a real shot. And I do think that we can win in 7 if all the stars align. And like I said, half of me thought I should pick Edmonton in 4, and half of me thought I should pick LA Kings in 7. It's just really tough with this team and the way they look.
that's where a lot of Kings fans are right now.
So let's get all your predictions in the chat while I do some plugs here. So we got all of our articles coming at Hockey Royalty. We're gonna have the official hockeyroyalty.com predictions coming to you pretty soon from all of our writers who do a great job throughout the season. We also have Kyle Garcia talking about the Reign. So if you're interested in the AHL playoffs, please follow him in the chat. Get all your t-shirts here. We got the Kevin Fiala t-shirt. We got the Trevor Moore t-shirt. You do the Let Kev Be Kev at $30. You do the combo here at $45. All orders should go to at NHL Russell DMs, Venmo at Hockey Royalty. We'll get those to you lickety split. Thank you for coming to the chat here.
Brandon, what do you think about the rest of the West, Brandon?
Yeah, what do you think about the rest of the league?
Oh, I'm about to close it out here, and you guys want to keep it going. Let's go. I like it. All right, let's do it. All right, rest of the West. Let's go to our DraftKings odds. Let's start with the first one. Avalanche, Winnipeg Jets. Avalanche are negative 135. Jets are plus 115. What do you guys feel in that series?
Ooh, I like the Avs quite a bit, actually. I think the Avs, they've been struggling of late, but I feel like they'll get to a point. They call them playoff Mac for a reason. They're just too, and I'm not going to say they're going to roll the Jets, but I think they'll end up winning in 5. But they'll be close games. They'll all be close games, but I think a lot of the concerns with the Avs goaltending is maybe a little overblown. So I think they got the talent to kind of carry them over the top. And I really like what they did at the trade deadline. So I say Avs in 5.
Yep. Colorado in 6 for me, but 5 I got a hard time picking sweeps, and I don't think they would sweep Winnipeg, but Winnipeg, Hellebuck easily can steal a game or two. I'll go Colorado on 6.
I'm with DraftKings here. The Jets have the second best odds for all the underdogs at plus 115. I'm taking Jets in 7.
Ooh, okay.
Okay.
Those games will be really close. I'll say that.
I think you look at the goaltending for the Jets, better than the Avalanche. If he can get hot, and you look at the team, the way they play, they have speed, they have physicality. I mean, our boy Velarde here is the goal merchant there. I think that team can really play if they get the right goaltending with Hellebuck. I'll take Jets in 7. Next series is going to be Canucks versus Predators. Canucks are -150. Predators are 130. Joe already said he's taking the Preds. Joe, why do you feel the Preds are going to win the series?
I love the way Brunette coaches. I think they're going to get after it. I think they're going to put pressure on Vancouver's D. I mentioned the Kings earlier being a team that doesn't create a whole lot in terms of high danger passes and whatnot. That's something that Vancouver also doesn't do a very good job of. Great goaltender in Nashville. I'm intrigued. I think Nashville wins, and I think it's going to be a tough series. Nashville in 7.
Yeah, I'm with our buddy Lieb in the chat who says Preds in 7, and Joe here. It's kind of weird though. Saros's numbers haven't been great this year.
No,
he hasn't really been the typical UC Saros that we've seen in the past. Maybe some of the trade kind of rumors have maybe inflicted that a little bit, but yeah, I'm like when the Predators have come into LA, the way that Brunette has that team kind of bought in right now is great, and they have some winners on that team. Obviously, with Ryan O'Reilly, Ryan McDonough, Roman Yossi, Philip Forsberg. Everybody wanted to write off the Predators at the beginning of the year, and I remember I was the one.
You were on them. You were on them.
I really like the Preds a little bit here. So, but I think it'll be a long series. I think it'll be a long series too. So I'll say 7. Preds in 7.
I think, I'm going opposite with you guys here. I'm going Canucks in 6. I think Elias Pettersson shows why he made 8 years, $92.8 million. One of the top centers in the league. Sometimes the best players in the league have to be the best players in the league, and Elias Pettersson is the best player in this series. I think he dominates it. He shows why he's earned that money. And you have some good goaltending in Demko. I'll take Vancouver in 6 games in the series. Man, you guys, we're exact opposites here. We'll see how we're going on here.
Well, something real quick, something interesting about that series. I mean, that's the Oilers or Kings next matchup. So if the Preds win and the Kings win, Kings have home ice advantage in the next round. So
you're just picking the Preds because you want us to have home ice advantage. I understand.
Yeah,
basically. No, Quinn Hughes is playing out of his mind. One of the best defensemen in the league this year.
Yep.
And you have Elias Pettersson, one of the best centers in the league. I think that team will figure it out. And in a 7-game series, to get it together, will they be able to withstand the pressure of Canadian hockey media in a playoff series? Remains to be seen. I mean, you might see Elias Pettersson say he doesn't speak English anymore. Like, I'm Swedish only, So I don't know, but I have a feeling the best players make plays. And the best players in that series are Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes. Let's go to the next series here. The local team here, Dallas Stars, -140 against the Golden Knights. Obviously, the Golden Knights, are over 25, maybe 45 million over the salary cap with all their LTIR stuff. But the team's getting healthy. The so-called spleen that was ruptured, who knows where that's at? But Mark Stone is practicing and the good trades. So, with that said, Dallas Stars is the best team in the league, in my opinion. I think they're most consistent. I think they play consistently. The best team in the league. They have a great goaltender in Ottinger. I'm taking the Stars in 6 here. I think they're just a more complete team. All these players getting off of injury. Yes, I know Mark Stone's a great player. Yes, I know Thomas Hertl's a great player. But they're coming off of injury. Yeah, they're trying to play in a playoff setting, and they've done it before, like they did last year. with Mark Stone in the year before because they're the LTIR merchants. But I would say the most consistent team all year long with the ebbs and flows have been the Dallas Stars. I'm taking Stars at 6.
I'm going to go pretty crazy here. I say Dallas sweeps Vegas.
Whoa! All right.
I don't like the way Vegas has played of late at all. I don't think Hannafin or Mantha or even Hurdle have really kind of fit right away. And I think you're asking a lot of Hurdle to kind of come back. He's only played a few games.
And congratulations on Hannafin getting the contract, by the way.
Yeah.
I like players getting his money.
Yeah. But, I mean, yeah, Dallas, even though Vegas swept them during the regular season, man, Dallas is just, they're so good. They're so good. And the way Ottinger's playing, like he was just making like paddle saves like it was just nothing the other day. And I was like, dude. So I'll say, yeah, I'm going to say Dallas sweeps.
Yeah, Dallas is too good. Not a great first round for them to win the West. So you're going to deal with Vegas. But you're right. Vegas is off right now. This is a thing where, I feel like Vegas does this. Remember a couple years ago, wasn't it 2 years ago, they missed the playoffs and everybody was laughing at Vegas. I'm like,
yeah,
don't laugh yet because they're going to come back and they're going to be just fine. That's kind of how I feel right now. Like they may be down this year and maybe they lose. I think they lose to Dallas in the first round at 6. Vegas is going to be a problem next year, though. So just remember that get your laughs in now, I guess, but they're going to be back big time next year. But yeah, I agree. Dallas wins this series.
If they can make the cap work, I mean, they're going to have to find.
They will. They'll be fine.
Yeah.
They always do.
So the last series here, obviously we've already given it with the Oilers and Kings, our predictions there. If we were to give one team out of the East to make it a Stanley Cup, where are you going?
Out of the West, you mean?
No, out of the East. We've already done the first round playoffs. So I'm saying out of the East, if all these teams
you want to recap all the series? We can pick all the series if you want.
You want to do all the series? Hey, we're only at hour 56. Let's go deep. Let's go deep here. Thank you guys.
There's some good matchups there. I like the East matchups. It's a lot of fun. Saturday's going to be great.
Hey, we're about to do the East, but please like this video, subscribe to the chat. We're going to be doing a lot. We're really going to try to cover every single game before, after the games, as much as stuff we can do, live shows with what our schedules can provide for hockey royalty. We'll be there for you in the playoffs. So let's go to the East then. Fine. Carolina Islanders. Carolina negative or minus 340. Islanders plus 280. Islanders don't even look like a hockey team. So
Roy has them humming. Roy has
where are you guys thinking this? I think Carolina in 5, maybe, and that's just because I don't want to say sweep, but I think Carolina is the best team out of the East, to be honest with you.
I'm with you. Carolina in 5. They're stacked.
Yep, Carolina in 5. I'd say 4 if it wasn't for Sorokin somehow sealing a game.
What was it last year? It was the same matchup last year. Didn't they win in 6, I believe? Something
like that.
But and they didn't have Svechnikov last year either, and they still beat him.
Or Gensel.
Yeah, and you have Gensel, and Kuznetsov now wants to play hockey again. So Carolina's going to roll them.
Boston Bruins, negative 125 versus the Maple Leafs. I think everybody in this chat and in all of humanity outside of Toronto wants the Maple Leafs to lose because that's just funny. That's just funny. But where are we picking in this division or this series?
Leafs in 7.
Oh, why are you seeing that, Joe?
Now, if William Nylander is going to miss any sort of significant time, that could be a problem. But Boston doing what they did this season, full marks. Like, I did not see this coming. I just think the star power and there's too many game breakers in Toronto that I think is going to be enough to push them over to the edge. Obviously, the goaltending advantage in Boston is a big deal, so that's why I think the series is going to be it's going to be a tough one for Toronto. But I think the Leafs do it. I think the Leafs win in 7.
I'm surprised you think the goaltending advantage is a big deal. I thought you were pretty high on Samsonov.
I was, but I mean, Swayman and Allmark are obviously.
I mean, they didn't look that good in the playoffs last year, though. They were kind of
But
struggling.
Allmark was hurt. Allmark was hurt in the playoffs.
They need to use both. They need to use both.
I think
they will.
They erred last year because they didn't do both. They leaned on Allmark because he wasn't the Vezina, but he was hurt. He wasn't healthy, and they should have went to Swayman sooner. They went to him too late.
Man, I'm so conflicted on this series. Like, I'm with you, Brandon. It would just kind of be it's a running joke now with the Leafs and just continuing to falter. But man, like I kind of agree with Joe. Like, there's way too much star power on the Leafs that I think will carry them. It's like Boston doesn't really have that good of depth either, and I'm not a huge fan of the Leafs defensive core. But yeah, I mean, they've got enough off, and those games are going to be so high scoring. It's going to be so much fun to watch those games.
Yeah.
So I'll say Toronto in 7 as well.
Players make plays. This is the best season Austin Matthews has ever had with goal scoring. He's on another mission. He's playing better defense he's ever had. Toronto in 5.
Ooh,
Wow,
yeah.
I like it.
And I just think you need those type of players. And I hate Canadian hockey because their fans are obnoxious. but in real life, you want the top players of the game to perform the way they should. And Austin Matthews is an elite talent. He's probably the best goal scorer since Ovechkin to ever play the game. And he's just on another level this year. And he's not a liability on the defensive side of the puck. I think that I would say Toronto in 5. I hope we see pure brilliance from Austin Matthews, Toronto in 5.
I think it's better for the league if they go far.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's better for the league. It's better for hockey. It's not better for my trash talk. Let's go. Florida Panthers versus the Lightning. Florida Panthers -180.
I'm so excited.
Lightning
playoff
plus 150. And this is all DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of here at Hockey Realty. Code THPN. So where are we seeing here? I mean, Panthers have been the favorite out of the East for a long time. Very deep team. Russ, where are you feeling this series is going?
Man, I'm so conflicted here too. I mean, I think whatever the standings say at the end of the year, these are two teams that absolutely despise each other. And I mean, we should all feel so lucky that we get to watch this playoff series unfold because it's just going to be an absolute slugfest. You get Matthew Tkachuk going up against like some of the players on Tampa now that they added like the likes of like Matt Dumba and the way Kucherov is playing. I mean, this is going to be hatred on ice. It's going to be beautiful. But yeah, I've always been a big Lightning fan. Love Victor Hedman as a player. Obviously, I think Vasilevsky, when he's up to his game, is one of the best, if not the best goaltender of the league. But Florida, they look pretty damn good. And I think Tkachuk is going to will them past the Lightning. But it'll be a long series, so I'm going to say Florida in 7.
Same. Yeah. I think it's going to be a war, but Florida's better. Florida in 7.
I think that looking at both teams and the goalies and all that kind of stuff like that, and what Kucherov has willed the Lightning to this season, potentially the best player in the entire league, I'm taking Lightning in 7 in this.
It's going to be close.
I think that it's going to be a war. I think Kucherov is going to have players make plays, and I love the Tkachuks. I wish we had a Tkachuk. So
I think everybody wishes they had a Tkachuk.
Yeah, but I think Vasilevsky has done it before, multiple times, to where he can will himself up to being the best goalie in the NHL, and I think that team wins in 7. So I think we got one more, right? Yeah. Rangers -450 against the Capitals +340. I don't think any of us are picking the Capitals, but how many games do you think this game goes?
I was in Buffalo, the last home game Sabres, to watch the Capitals, whose season was on the line. That was one of the worst hockey games I have ever seen in my entire life. That Capitals team is awful. The Rangers, I'm not even like that high on the Rangers. They're sweeping the series. This is a horrible Capitals team. Unless Charlie Lindgren finds his way to steal a game, which is doable. Bad hockey team. Rangers cruise in this series.
Yeah,
meaning what? 4, 5?
4.
He's a sweep. I like it. But like I'm echoing almost everything Joe says. Like I'm not a huge Rangers guy. I never really have been. I just don't think. I don't know. Nothing really excites me about that team. And so, but yeah, it's the Capitals. they should be lucky that they're even in this position. So, yeah, I won't say sweep, but I'll say 5. I'll say 5 games. I'll give a consolation game. Lindgren will steal one at home.
There you go.
I'll say Rangers in 5 as well. Let's give one last prediction. Your teams in the Stanley Cup final right now, going into it, what do you guys feel? Russ, your gut instinct, who's playing the Stanley Cup final this year?
My gut instinct says it'll be Dallas and Carolina in the final. And I'll just give you a winner. I think it'll be Dallas. I think this is Joe Pavelski's year to finally win a cup.
Joe, do you agree with him, or where are you going?
I don't think that's a bad pick. But I'm going to disagree a little bit. I'm a little chalky. I agree, Carolina. They're the favorite to make the final and win the cup. So it's like I don't know. I feel like they're not going to do it now. I feel like, but no, I'm going to Edmonton, Carolina. Edmonton wins the cup.
The first Canadian Stanley Cup in a billion years. I don't know. I Dallas is nice. I really like Dallas out of the West because I'm watching them consistently out of here.
They're good.
I'm gonna go a little off the beaten path here, and I have been with my picks because players make plays. Nathan McKinnon is the best player in hockey right now.
Okay.
I'm going Avalanche out of the West. I'm going Toronto out of the East. Avalanche win another Stanley Cup in 7 games.
That would be a fun Stanley Cup final if they got to that point. Man, if you think, if a lot of us are picking Dallas and I think me and Joe both picked Colorado, you're looking at that second round matchup. Whew, yikes.
Yeah, that's tough.
Man, I'm just saying, man, if the Kings can get past these Oilers, you get Vancouver or the Preds, and then you can maybe see what you can do against one of those top 2 teams in either Dallas or Colorado in the Western Conference Final. Who knows?
But I know that we have the best fans in all podcasting here at Hockey Royalty. So thank you guys for coming in. Please like and subscribe. All of our articles coming out, including the official predictions for the series coming in here at hockeyroyalty.com. Please buy our t-shirts. Let Kev be Kev, $30 at sizes small through XXL. You can get yourself a combo plate of $45 for more in the Kev combo. All orders should go to NHL Russell on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. Venmo hockey at Hockey Royalty. Get in the chat, like and subscribe. Man, we went over 2 hours. Hockey's coming up. Sit in your chairs, ladies and gentlemen, because we got a good playoffs coming in. Thank you for all you do for us here at Hockey Royalty. And as always, on this podcast, go Kings go.